Greetings, Ordo Principium and future Magi. Well, we're coming to the final finish line of this never-ending Serpents Tongue project, and I thought it was about time for a bit of an update. As our, not just our financial backers, but our investors, I'd like to talk about where we're at right now, our expected release date, and how we ended up with the delay that we had. But first, we finally got some of the codec samples back from China, and I'm quite pleased. While neither one of these is sort of final, we're taking components from each one of these sample codexes and combining them into one, hopefully brilliant codex by adding a little bit of foil, ST logo, and some other sort of finishings, glyphs, runes, and some embossings. But for the most part, we have captured the thematic and mystical aspect to the codex that I was always hoping for. It's still about 10% day planner-ish, but there's some pros and cons to that. And the pro is it's extremely durable. I mean, this is going to be much more durable than we'd ever expected these codexes to be. They should last for years. And they're providing a very, despite the functionality of the 6 rings, they're providing a very pleasant casting experience. And storing your spells and viewing them in here, or flipping them around to sort of in a training mode and using this to study, store, and interact with your spells it's quite pleasant. And I'm quite pleased with it. I think it's going to be a really powerful and quality component to the game. We had expected to release at the end of October, mid-November. I'd been very pleased if we'd gotten the games back from China by October 31st, November 1st, and then over the next 2 or 3 weeks, shipped them out and got them into your hands. But we hit November 15th, and we were still in development. Then December 15th, then January 15th. Now we're coming up on February 15th. And I think we still have March, April, May. I'd like to get this game into your hands sometime in May, which is going to put us 6 months late past our estimated delivery date, for which I apologize. I'm sorry. I did not expect for it to take this long. So I'd like to talk a little bit about how that happened. As our investors, I think you have a bit of a right to know the purpose or the reasoning behind the delays. So, and what's going to lead us to hopefully a 6-month delayed date. There's a couple of different factors. One is for working with China for the first time. There's a lot of sort of like putting a message in a bottle and throwing it across the ocean and seeing how it's going to be sort of translated. The fact that we ordered these before Thanksgiving and we just received them this week is sort of indicative of a major communication breakdown. But we have that figured out, and of course we still had a lot of other things to be working on the game during that time period, so it's not the primary culprit by any means. We also had a pretty major language breakdown over the last 3 months. After this beautiful language that the language team created, they, as it turns out, it just didn't function with the game. It just didn't work with the glyph construction system and made them completely illegible. So over the last 45 days, we basically had to completely overhaul the entire language, and we did that mostly in-house with Adam Duncan, Flair, Diabolus Golem Engineer Flair, and Jason Carter, who have been completely invaluable during this entire process for multiple reasons, not just the language. And what we came up with is a language I absolutely love. It's more thematic and more systematized. It actually breaks the sounds and the construction of the language out by sphere. So if you're a mind magi, all of your mind spells will tend to use some of the similar roots and have the same sort of sound, almost as if each sphere is its own dialect, which adds tremendous thematic feeling because matter spells actually sound different than mind spells or soul spells. But on top of that thematic sort of element to it, it makes it much faster and easier to learn. So the language is shipping up great. And then we also brought in Mark. So we have all the words and our basic grammar and our vocabulary to launch the game. But we brought in Mark Rosenfelder, one of the leading con linguists in the entire world and author of the Language Construction Kit, which is a fantastic, probably the definitive textbook on language construction. And he's going to take our language to the next level so that we can really have the deep syntax and grammar and morphology for sort of the augmented reality gaming and deep language aspects of the game. So that's all wrapping up pretty fast. But the real culprit of this 6-month delay is right here. It really comes down to me. And I can trace it back to a single decision back in June when we got the playtesting feedback from PT 1.0 back. And rather than implementing the already designed and devised and predicted tweaks that I had laid out to take it just from 1.0 to sort of 1.5 and just sort of baby step it and fix it and tweak it around a little bit in response to that initial demo test, we got a little ambitious and we overstepped our time frame by trying to implement a much more comprehensive transformation, more comprehensive than we realized or predicted at first. We basically bit off a lot more than we could comfortably chew by October 31st. Come October 31st, we were still chewing. So the implementation of Harmony, Discord, Ritual Paths was at the time we really deliberated upon it and felt that it was necessary in order to make the game a little more flat and more horizontal. Before, it was extremely vertical. It was a harsh, skill-based game, and a level 4 Magi would just destroy level 1s. And that's kind of what we wanted. There's a certain romanticism about that type of game, and we haven't seen a lot of games like that. But I think will be more enjoyable than that is to actually have Magi around you that can play this and participate in the Serpent's Tongue world with you. And that meant making it a little bit more flat. So a level 4 Magi would have an advantage over a level 1, but it wasn't just a complete blowout. And that's sort of what the primary shifts were designed to create. And they did. I guess the question is if I had to go back and do it all over again, would I still make that decision? I don't know. That's a tough question to answer because as much as I hate missing these deadlines, and I hate it. I mean, I despise missing those deadlines, don't I, Gunnar?
Yep.
I basically have a nervous breakdown each time. But I love this game even more. I'd hate to not have the game that has been developed. We wouldn't have nearly this quality of codex or components or from any of the components, from the box to the chips to the markers to the walkthrough. But most importantly, this is the heart of Serpent's Tongue, and it's these tarot card-sized, beautiful incantation cards that our Finnish designer and now one of my close friends, Jetta from Finland, has just turned into a real labor of love, tweaking and testing every single graphical element of this game, balancing its iconography with rules text, testing how the eyes roll across the card and how information is communicated across the table, and creating a framework that supports the entire card becoming a piece of art. And I just couldn't be pleased more, and I think you're just going to love these and enjoy collecting them and using them and studying them and learning them and playing with them. So it's hard to say because hindsight's 20/20. But I'm just glad or relieved that the 6 months delay has bought us a greater magnitude of game. And I hope you agree once you have this game in your hands, which hopefully will be May. However, considering the fact that during this process, my ability to correctly estimate how long different tasks, particularly when they're all sort of interconnected and relying upon each other, is wildly inaccurate, although we've learned a lot on that score, you might want to give us a little bit of a buffer, especially considering that the process to manufacture and ship is 90 days minimum. So we would love to finish up our end of the game in 2 weeks, but you might want to give us a 30-day buffer on that particular one and not be too upset with us if the game comes in sometime in June. I assume that you probably will be okay because during this whole process, you've just all been sweethearts. It's just been fantastic. The community has been extremely supportive, extremely patient, and I just love you to death. I can't tell you how much I appreciate your involvement from the beginning and your involvement and understanding throughout this whole process. So thank you once again. Goodbye.